Hello everybody. All right, so let's go over screen flows today. So I'm in my Trailhead org, and I think for today what we'll do is kind of create a somewhat contrived or arbitrary example to kind of justify using a screen flow. And what I'm thinking we'll do is, let's say we have a business use case for creating a custom screen that will allow our user to search for a case, and if the case is not found, then it will allow them to create a case. I think that's relatively straightforward and hopefully useful. So let's go ahead and jump into our setup and go ahead and create that flow. So in my setup, I'm going to go ahead and search for flow, click on flows, and in here I will go ahead and click on new flow. And right here we are presented with a few options, and I will probably make videos on all these different kinds of flows. So, feel free to stay tuned into that or subscribe if you want. But anyways, so what we want is we're going to create a screen flow right here, and we have this canvas right here. Now, what I'm going to go ahead and do is at the top right here, I'm going to click on freeform, and that's just a preference. Basically, if you choose the auto layout, you click on this little plus icon to get your different elements to pop up, and it kind of organizes it for you on the canvas. But I kind of like to move things around, so I'm going to choose freeform, and we can see all the different elements on the left hand side right here. And to start off with, the first thing you want to do is we're going to drag and drop a screen element, and in this screen element we are going to call this search for case. I think that's fine. The API name, I'm going to add screen at the end of it just to kind of differentiate it. And let's see. So what we want to do is, let's say we want to allow the user to search for a case via the contact email. So in that case, I'm going to go look at my different inputs right here, and I see there's an email input. I'm going to go ahead and just drag it onto our screen. And on the right hand side, the API name we're going to give this is just contact email. I think it's fine. So contact email. And just in case you're wondering where I'm going to be pulling all these fields from, very quickly, let's go into our cases. And what I'm going to do right here is just click on the little cogwheel and hit edit object so we can kind of see what we're dealing with. And right here, we're going to click on fields in relationships. And here are all the different fields on the case object, at least in my Trailhead org. So the one I'm talking about is this right here, the contact email. So yeah, we're going to be pulling some of these fields for our use case. So back in our screen flow right here, we have this email inputs right here, and the API name is contact email. The label, we could just leave it as email, that's fine. It's not going to be disabled. Placeholder is fine. Read only, false. We do want to make this required, so I'm going to go ahead and change. Actually, if this is kind of confusing, you can get rid of the whole thing and then you'll see all the options. In this case, we want it to be true, so I'm going to select the global constant true, meaning that the user has to provide this information or else they can't click on the next step. And we should be good to go from there. Okay, so additionally, let's say in addition to allowing them to search by email, we also want them to be able to search by this other field called, let's say, case reason. I think that's reasonable. So let's go ahead and go into an actual case right here. I'm just going to click into one of them, and on the right hand side I have my details. So it looks like case reason, if we click into that, is a pick list and has a bunch of different options. So I think that makes sense. We'll allow the user to search for a case by the contact email and a case reason. So let's go ahead and do that. Since case reason is a pick list, we're going to have to go ahead and create a pick list input. So right here is pick list input. I'll go ahead and slide this down or drag this right there. And we're going to call this case reason, like so. The API name can stay like that. And then in this case, since it's a pick list, we have the option of just doing a little checkbox to make it a required field. We're only going to let them choose one option, so that will stay as no. It's a pick list. We can also make it a radio button, but I don't think it would make sense in this case. So we'll keep it as a pick list. And for the choice right here, what we actually have to do is we have to create a new resource that's going to contain all the options of that case reason pick list. So let's go ahead and click on this plus new choice resource. And right here we have a bunch of different options just to kind of keep things simple. And I think I will make videos in the future that go into much more detail about what resources are and the different elements and so on and so forth. But for now, what we're looking for is this pick list choice set right here. And we're going to call this case underscore reason underscore pick list, just to kind of stay a bit more organized. And the pick list that we're going to be looking for is on the case object. So let's go ahead and choose the case object. The data type, it's a pick list, not a multi-select pick list. And the field we're looking for is the case reason right there. And we even have the option of sorting it. So I guess we can just sort it by ascending. That's fine. It doesn't really matter in this case. Let's go ahead and click on done. And now essentially what we've done is we've created a resource that our pick list can use to display all those different values on that case reason field. So I think we're good to go from here. Let's go ahead and click done and let's click save. And we even have to give it a name now. So let's go ahead and call this search or create a new case, I guess. I don't really know what to name it. That's fine. So let's go ahead and click save. And now, it looks like we have some issues. Yep, that's my fault. I forgot to connect the start point to our first screen right here. Now I should be able to click on save and we should be good to go. Yep. So now let's go ahead and click on run just to kind of see what we have at this point. So you can see here now we are running this flow and we're able to choose an email. So I can see something like test@test.com, and this pick list now has all the different values of that case reason field. So for example, if we go to our case reason and we click into it, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different options right here. And we should see 7 different options right here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We indeed do. And it looks like they're even being sorted in ascending order, which is kind of nice, I guess. So yep, we have our first part done. If we click finish, well, it's not really going to do anything. And also because we didn't choose a case reason, but if we had chosen one and we clicked on finish, it's basically just going to return back to the beginning of the flow. So that's fine. So now that we have kind of our starting point, let's go ahead and do the next bit. So now that the user has inputted some information into our screen, we want to basically search our org or the case object or table or whatever you want to call it for any potential matches. And the way we do that is by using this get records data element. So we're going to just drag it right here. And let's go ahead and call this get case records, like so. And we're going to be looking for records on the case object, and we need to set up some filter criteria for that. And basically what we're going to be looking for is for the email. So basically use the email that the user supplied. So we're going to say the contact email has to equal something, and in that case we're looking for the email that the user set. So in the value right here, drop down, we're going to scroll down to where we get to the screen components. We're looking for the contact email, which is that screen input that we basically added to that screen. So we're going to click on it. And then here we have all these different options. Really, what we're looking for is the value. So we're looking for a case or cases, could be more than one, where the contact email is equal to whatever the user supplied in that screen. And additionally, we also want to make sure that it's pulling the reason. So the reason also has to equal whatever the user inputted. So if you scroll down, here we have in our screen components the case reason. So we're essentially telling Salesforce, give us all the cases where the contact email is what the user wanted and the reason is what the user wanted as well. Okay, and then once we have all that done and ensure that it's an and, in this case we care that both these criteria are met. You know, in your specific business logic, you might have different criteria, but in this case, we're kind of keeping it simple. But anyways, so the next step is we can basically sort it by something. Just to kind of showcase this, I guess we can sort it ascending, and then here's going to ask us by which field do you want it sorted by. And in this case, let's go ahead and just sort it by in this case, I think it's the default naming of cases number. So case number. So from ascending, so from like 0 all the way down to the highest number, that'll be fine. And the next option, how many records to store? We want to basically get all the ones that met this criteria. So ensure that we select all records. And then the last option is how to store record data. In this case, we're just going to keep things simple. We're going to just store all the fields as is. I will make videos in the future about this. If you guys want, just feel free to let me know. But once we have all of this, we can click on done. And now we can attach our screen element to this get records element right here. So now the user is presented with the screen, they input some information, and then we search for records based on that criteria. Once we have all of that done, we have to basically decide, right? Did we actually find any records or did we not find any records? And the way to do so is by using this decision logic element, which I'm going to drag onto the screen right here. And in this case, I'm going to call it display or create new case. And I think it's pretty self-explanatory. So essentially, if we find case records that met the user's criteria, just show it to the user. If we did not, allow the user to essentially create a brand new case. So hopefully that makes sense. But anyways, you'll see right here on the left-hand side, we have what's called new outcome and default outcome. I'm going to go ahead and starting with the new outcome, give it a name. So in the first, I guess, potential outcome is that we did find some records. So we're just going to display them. And that's exactly what I'm going to call this. So we're going to call this display case parentheses cases, I guess. And in this case, we want to go down this potential decision path if we met some criteria, right? And the criteria is, if we can scroll down a little bit, right here you see essentially whenever you do like a get records element, Salesforce for free essentially will allow you to just get those records without you having to create your own variable yourself. So you can see here under record collection variables, we can pull all the cases we got from our get case records data element that we did, essentially the get records element. So we're going to say, look at the cases from the get case records element. And we want to say, or rather we want to check, is it null? And we're going to say false. And essentially what this is saying is, look at the case records. And if it's not false, go down this path, the display cases path. Hopefully that makes sense. Now, if this is null, meaning that there are no records that were found, we want to go down the other path, which is right now just named default outcome. But let's go ahead and call this creates new case. So now we have two potential decisions that can be made, right? Or two potential paths. The first one is display cases, and the other one is create new case. For display cases, it will only go down this path if we actually found case records in our system based on user input. If we did not, it's just going to go down the create new cases path, which, as you can see here, there's no conditions because this is the path that basically is like the else in your if statement. If it wasn't met, it just goes down this path automatically. So we're going to go ahead and click on done. Let's go ahead and attach this right here. And let me go ahead and kind of organize it a little bit. So we'll make sure it lines up neatly right here. And I'll do the same for this right here. As you can see, this is probably why they created the auto layout, because things can become disorganized real fast. But anyways, so now we have this decision right here, right? And now we can kind of create the different split paths based on that. So let's start off with the potential path of there were case records found in the system, right? So in that case, what do we want to do? Well, I think it'd be pretty reasonable to just show the records in this case. So I'm going to go ahead and drag another screen element in here. And what we're going to do is, for this one, let's just go ahead and call this something like cases found. And what we want to do is we want to show some way, or basically look for some way of displaying all those records that were found from the get records element. And what we can do is, there is now this data table. It's in beta, but it works pretty well. So essentially, this is basically just what it sounds like. It's just a table. So, think about like a list view. When you have a list view, there's a bunch of records in a kind of table format. That's essentially what this is. So let's go ahead and give this a name. And right here, I'm going to call this cases. Let me go ahead and uppercase the first letter. So cases data table. I think that's fine. The label, we'll just call this cases. And right here under source collection, essentially asking where do you want to pull that information from. And again, because we're at the decision path in which we did find records, we can basically just use that cases from get case records that Salesforce creates for us when we use a get records element. So right here, I think that's fine. Essentially just saying show all the cases from the get cases records in this little element right here. And we even have some more options. So, essentially we want to allow the user to choose multiple records, again, going back to the list view example. In your list view, you have like a checkbox on the left-hand side, and you're allowed to, check multiple ones and then perhaps run a quick action or some lightning component or some other thing that you can use to manipulate your data with. In this case, it's asking you if you want to make it a view only or only allow one record to be chosen at a time, or select multiple records. It's up to you. I don't think I'm going to go much further than this, meaning I'm not going to show we're not going to add more logic to the next portion of the screen where you can maybe manipulate records. I think this is enough to show kind of how screens work. So in this case, let's just say they can choose a single record. That's fine. We're not going to do much with it anyways. So we'll just keep that as is. Let's click on done. And let's go ahead and click on the decision tree, or rather click and hold and then drag it down right here. When you do that, we get this little modal pop up, and it's going to ask us connect it based on which decision, right? And the one we're looking for is display cases. So essentially, if there were records to be found, this is what we want to happen next, right? So let's go ahead and click on done. And as you can see right here, now we have this path, right? So if records were found from this get element thing, show this screen, and I think that's fine. And like I said, we're not going to go any further down here because this would probably become like a 50-minute video if I did that. And we want to keep this simple for now. So I guess just kind of pretend that there's more logic down here that allows the user to do something with those records that were found. So just pretend, right? Anyways, so now we want to create the case or the logic for when there were no records found, right? Essentially, the case being allow the user to create a brand new case. So in this case, let's go ahead and drag another screen element down here. And now what I'm going to go ahead and do is, this one will keep it simple. It's going to be mostly just kind of like informational, I guess. So we'll call this screen no case found or something like that. And again, I'm going to add screen at the end of the API name just to keep things a bit organized. And what I'm going to go ahead and do is scroll down on the left-hand side all the way down to perhaps like display text right here. And this is just output text. It's not going to allow the user to input anything. But essentially what I want to do is just show some information to the user, right? And let's go ahead and call this no case found text. Okay. And in this box right here, we can basically just write something down that will be shown to the user. So we're going to say no case, or I guess parentheses cases were found, like that. And then I'm going to write something like, don't worry, you can create a new case in the next screen. Just something simple to kind of guide our user. So yeah, no cases were found. Don't worry, you can create a new case in the next screen. I think that's pretty reasonable. So we'll click on done, and we're going to drag this to our next one right here. And because we only had, 2 decisions, it's kind of smart enough to know that, there's only one decision left to be made. So it just links it for you. So it's kind of cool. So now if no cases were found, we see this screen, and then now what we want to do is probably create another screen. And I guess I could have just used this exact same screen to basically have like inputs here that allow the user to, write information down that we then take to create the brand new case. But I think it might be nice to kind of keep those things separate. So let's go ahead and create a brand new screen. And this one will be to actually create our case, or the brand new case. And let's go ahead and call this create new case, like that. And again, I'm going to add screen to the end of the API name, like so. And in here, let's see. So if we go back to our case right here, and let's just try to create a brand new case. Like I clicked on the little caret symbol and just click on new case. And I'm only doing this because I kind of forgot what were the required fields for cases. So it looks like we have to provide a status, a case origin. I think that might be it. I don't think we have to provide a contact, but it might be nice to let the user do that. And it looks like currency is also required, but I think that's I think there's a default value set for that. So I think what we'll do is we'll allow the user to choose a contact, and depending on the contact that they choose, the count will automatically get populated. I think we can populate the status for the user automatically, since we kind of called our flow searcher create new case. So it automatically starts off as a new case. So yeah, we'll ask the user for a contact, a case origin, and maybe something like a subject, description, internal comments. I think that's reasonable. So let's go into our screen flow, or screen right here. And first things first is I want to allow the user some way to choose a contact that's already in the system. And there's many different ways of doing this. You can do something similar to what we did earlier with the case reason that we did in the first screen. So if we go back to the top right here, this case reason right here, if you recall, what we did is we created a brand new resource, right? And that resource, in the case of this one, we chose a pick list, but you could choose basically the same thing, a pick list, and then have it populated by all the different contacts in the system. That's one way of doing it. But I think in this case, just to kind of provide more variety, and it might look better in this case. Let's go ahead and use the lookup input right here. So wrong screen right here. Let me exit out. Oh, and it looks like I forgot to save that screen in the first place. That's my fault. So let's go ahead and recreate it one more time. Create new case, add screen to the end of the API name. And like I said, let's make use of the lookup input. So if you drag it here, and lookup is exactly what it sounds like. It's just a lookup field. Kind of does look a little bit more confusing on the right hand side, but it's not that bad. So essentially what we want to do is the API name right here. This is just the API name for, this input that we're creating. In this case, I'm going to call it contact record lookup. If I can spell right, like that. The field API name, if there's a little help text right here, and it says the API name of a lookup field on the source object. So we're looking, essentially there is a contact lookup field on the case, right? And we need that API name. So if we go back to our case object and in fields and relationships, there should be a case lookup field somewhere. So if we scroll down right here, we have a lookup that is a contact, and the field API name is contact ID. So this is what we need right here. So I'm going to go ahead and copy and just paste that right here. That is the API name for that contact. Now we need to give it a label. So I'm going to say something like contact name, like that. The object API name right here, if we hover over it, it says the API name of the source object. Well, we're dealing with cases in this case, right? So we want to call this case right here because that's the API name of our case object. And maximum selection, so it's basically allowing how many can the user choose rather. Just one. I don't want them to choose more than one option because that'd be kind of weird. And yeah, I think that's looking good for now. Additionally, there is something kind of cool you can do. So if we go to the advanced tab or section right here, click on it, and there's a checkbox right here that allows you to manually assign variables. And essentially what basically sounds like exactly what it is. But if you check it, you have all these other options right here. And essentially this allows you to take whatever input the user puts in here and map it to some other variable that you already have defined in the system. In this case, we don't have any variables defined in the system, or in this flow rather. But what I'm going to go ahead and do is create a brand new resource. And this time what we're looking for is to create a brand new variable. And we're going to call this new case record, like that. And that's exactly what it sounds like. We're going to create a brand new case record that we're going to basically just add stuff to, and then use the update data element to the creates record element to basically create the record for us. So it's going to ask us what is the data type where we're looking for a record. It's not a collection or a list, whatever you want to call it. We're just doing this for one record because we're only allowing the user to create one case record at a time. The type of record we're looking to create is a case. So choose that right there. We're not working with Apex or any other things that use these flows. So you don't have to worry about this for now. Click done right here. And as you can see right here, now it kind of populates for us. We're not going to dump basically this output right here just into the record itself. Basically, we want to store whatever the user chooses for contact in the actual contact field or the contact ID field. So if you see here, we can kind of click on it, and then it shows us all the different fields that belong to the case. And we're going to look for the one that says contact ID because, as you might recall, if we go back to our object, this is the lookup field for contacts. So kind of cool. I wish this was allowed for more fields, like, as an example, like just the text field and so on and so forth, as you'll kind of see in a second. But this kind of allows us to not have to like use an assignment, as I will show in a little bit, an assignment element to kind of manually map this yourself. Like this kind of just gives that step for you, which is kind of annoying because a lot of the other fields don't really support this kind of functionality. But at least just remember that we already mapped the contact ID on this brand new case record that we created. So that's already done for us. So hopefully that long explanation made sense. But anyways, the next thing you want to do is, like I said, let the user choose the case origin, and that was also a pick list. So let's go ahead and drag a pick list underneath right here. And we're going to go ahead and call this, I think just origin is fine. So origin, and this will be a origin pick list like that. Let's also make it a required field. Oh, and I think if you go back here, can we make this required? Yes, we can. So required is true, just a global constant true. So as you can see here, there's like a little red asterisk next to both these fields, meaning the user can't just click on finish without filling these out first. So here we have to provide the choices, and we're pretty much going to do the same thing we did for case reason. So let's go ahead and click on create new choice resource, and we're going to choose the pick list choice set again, and we're going to call this origin pick list. And I think we're going to have an issue because I already named this pick list over here, so we'll call this case origin pick list. As you can see, naming convention is not my strong suit, but anyways, so we're gonna grab the case, and we're looking for a pick list. The field we're looking for is origin right here, and again, just to kind of be nice to our user, we will sort it by ascending order, so it makes it easier for them to find whatever they're looking for, and we'll click on done right there. And as you can see, it auto-populated for us. So now it's going to pull all those different options on the origin pick list and just display them to the user. So that's kind of nice. And it is a required field, as we said earlier. And next, I think we had said we wanted the user to be able to type in the subject. So we'll call this subject, and the API name will be subject text. And also, again, I think it should probably be a required field. And here's kind of what I was talking about, whereas with the lookup field, you have access to this advanced tab right here, and you're able to essentially just kind of like for free map whatever the user chose straight into a case record. For the input right here, you don't have the ability to do that, at least not yet. So it's kind of frustrating, but we'll get around that in a second. So anyways, yeah, so we created a subject input text, and it's a required field. You can provide a default value if you wanted to, but we're not going to in this case. Next up is we want to allow the user to type in a description and internal comments. In this case, it sounds like there might be more text used up. So let's go ahead and use a long text area in this case, as opposed to just a regular text. And I'm going to just drag both of them to start off with. The first one will be called description, like that. And I'll just call it long text, like so. We'll make this one required as well. Whereas this last one right here that we're going to call internal comments, long text, will not be a required field, so they can kind of just keep it empty. And I think that's it. So basically just let the user fill all these fields, and then we'll create the case record for them. So let's go ahead and click on done now, and let's go ahead and tie this screen to this screen right here. So yeah, so basically we'll show the user some information telling them that no cases were found and that they can create a new case on the next screen, which is right here. Once we collected all this information from the user, we have to do the last bit, which basically is to take most of those inputs and assign them to that case record variable that we created. And just to kind of show you guys, if we go on the left-hand side of the toolbox, click on manager right here, and this basically shows you all the different resources that you've kind of created up until this point. So you can see all the different screens you've created, the get record elements, decisions that we've done, so on and so forth. Screen components are right here. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Here is that record collection variable, or rather, this is the record singles variable. This one right here is the variable that gets automatically created for you when you use a get records element right here. So that's that right there. This is the one that we created to basically hold the lookup field up until this point, the contact lookup field. So that's there. You can even see it right here. This is the usage so far on it. But anyways, so what we're going to do now is we're going to make use of this assignment logic element. I'm going to drag it right here, and let's go ahead and call this something like, I think we'll call it like set new case fields. I think that's fine. Again, you should probably give this a description if you were planning to deploy this stuff to production. And here is kind of where we get to like take all that user input, with the exception of the lookup field, because we already did that for the user, and tie it to the case record variable that we made. So first things first, if you guys recall, I said that we'll allow the user to choose a contact, and then we'll use that contact information to also basically populate the account information for them. So what we're going to do now is go using the new case record. We want to populate the account ID right here, and we're going to say this is going to be equal to, and basically because we had already pre-populated the contact information, what we can go ahead and do is go into the new case record again and go into the, I think it's contact, right? Where's the contact? So I think we can just type it out. So right here, contact ID, and you'll see there's a little caret symbol, so you can click on it, and it's going to allow us to choose more information. And basically what we're after is the account ID. If we scroll down, there it is. So essentially, because when we created the contact lookup for the user to choose some information, that contact on the case record got populated. But because contact is related to the account is a parent to the contact, well, basically we can reach into the contact and then look at the parent account ID and then basically pull that out and tie it back in here. So it's kind of a neat way of like making it so that the user doesn't have to choose both an account and a contact. So just by choosing a contact, we're able to then pull the parent account ID and also tie it to that case record. So hopefully that makes sense. Next thing we want to do probably is the status. So we're going to go into the case record and then type in status. And then we had said that we just want to just pre-populate it with new so the user doesn't have to do that. And what else? So perhaps the origin, the case origin as well. So let's look for origin. And we're going to populate that with whatever the user chose. So let's see, let's scroll down a little bit. Here it is. So we're looking for screen components and it is called origin pick list right there. Next up, we're going to look for the subject. So again, case record, search for subject, it's going to equal whatever the user chose. So go to screen components and choose the subject text. And we'll do the same thing for description and internal comments, and we should be good to go. Okay, once we have all of those things assigned to our case record, we should be good to go. Click done. And you see here we have this assignment thing now, and now we can just go ahead and tie it right here. Let's go ahead and kind of organize this a little bit to make sure it's not crooked. And last but certainly not least is we want to make use of our create records data element right here. And let's go ahead and just call this create records or create a new case. I think that probably sounds better. So we're only going to create one record and we're going to use all the values from a record, and that record being that case record that we kind of been building up for a while now. So let's go ahead and choose that right there. We'll click on done and we should be good to go. So let's go ahead and tie this right here. And I think that's pretty much it. So kind of going from top to bottom on this, we created a screen element that allows the user to basically search for a case. And we're going to make use of these user inputs to actually allow the search to happen using this get records element right here. As you can see, contact, email, and the reason. And then we have a decision path, right? If we did find records, then we're basically just going to use another screen element to show a data table to show those records. If there were no elements or records found, then basically we're going down this path right here. The first thing being a screen that just tells the user that no cases were found and that they can create a case in the next screen. Then that next screen is basically just a bunch of inputs, with perhaps the most noteworthy being the contact name that basically has this advanced little section right here that allows you to just kind of attach that information straight to the record without having to use an assignment element. And then once we have that, then we're just making use of the assignments element that will basically take all the user input and just add it to that brand new record that we had created. And then lastly, we make use of the create records elements to actually create the record for us. So I think we're looking pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and hit save on this now. And very important, if you actually want to use this in your org, you have to create or click on the activate, or else it's not going to be active in your system. And basically this will allow you to then place it, anywhere in your org that you want to. In this case, we're going to just go ahead and run it instead of placing it anywhere else, just to keep these things simple, because I'm pretty sure this video is getting kind of long. So now what we're going to go ahead and do is choose an email and a case, right? And I'm going to go ahead and cheat a little bit. Let's go back into our cases and we're going to search for, let's go into this case right here. And I'm going to go ahead and choose this email right here. And we'll make a note of the case reason, which is installation. So we'll choose this right here and then we'll choose installation, and essentially just making sure that get records thing is working properly. So let's click on next now. And it looks like nothing is appearing. And I'm pretty sure that's because we forgot to include columns in our data table. So let's go ahead and go back to our screen right here. In our data table, there is this option for configure columns right here. And basically nothing was shown because we didn't specify which columns to show for that record. So in this case, just to keep things simple, let's just show like the case number or something. And then we'll show perhaps the subject as well. Like that. And I'm sure you can show other things like, for example, like the contact email and the case reason, things like that. Let's go ahead and do the email as well, just so it doesn't look too plain. So yeah, we'll do case number, subject, and contact email. I think that should be fine. So let's go ahead and click on save as now. Just create a brand new version, that's fine. And then let's go ahead and run this one more time. And now I'm going to go ahead and choose this other email here, rose@edge.com. The case reason was complexity, equipment complexity. We'll click on next, and we see here now we actually do see some things. And I mean, we only have one case that met the criteria, but you're able to now essentially select this. And then if we had done more to our flow, we can basically just process this information. In this case, there's nothing else to do once we get to this point. So it's basically just going to return back to the beginning, right? And if I click on finish, it's basically back to the beginning. But now we can go ahead and test our other path. And in this case, we'll choose other, which I'm pretty sure there shouldn't be any cases that meet this criteria. Let's go ahead and click on next. And indeed, you see here now, no cases were found, but don't worry, you can create a new case in the next screen. So let's go ahead and click on next. And now we see this input form, right? So we can go ahead and click into it, and you'll see here some things pop up. And these are just my recently viewed contacts, but we can type in some stuff. So we'll type in something like A, and then I think you have to type in at least 2 letters for the search to kick off. So we'll do like AB or something. And then now we can search for all results. We'll have this pop up right here. That's might take a few seconds to populate all the information, but it looks like we have no contacts that start with that. So we'll do AC perhaps. Let's see, AC. Yeah, we have a few contacts that apparently start with AC. I guess because test contact has AC in it. But let's search for something like Young perhaps. Yeah, we have this one right here. So I'm going to go ahead and choose this contact called Andy Young that belongs to the Dickinson PLC account. And these are just standard records that were already there when I created this test org. But anyway, so let's choose Andy Young. You see this populates right here. And now we can choose the origin. So let's say this was a phone. And the subject, we'll just call it something like test subject. And then we'll give it like today's date. So we'll do like 10/30/22. And the description was test description. And in this case, we won't leave any internal comments. That's fine. So let's go ahead and click on next here. And it went back to the beginning because again, we don't have anything after this screen. Nothing else is shown to the user. I guess it might be kind of nice to have like another screen that says like, oh, your record was created or something. Here it is. But in this case, we don't. So let's go ahead and go back to our cases list view real quick. And we should be able to see that case in our recently viewed. Here it is, test subject 10/30/22. If we click into it, you can see here's the contact name. And the account name was populated as expected. And if we scroll down, here we have the subject, the description, and we didn't have any internal comments. So it looks like we're good to go. That's pretty much, in a nutshell, how to create a screen flow. Hopefully you guys found this useful. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Consider subscribing if you guys found this useful. And let me know if you guys want to see anything else in the comment section down below. And I'll catch you guys in the next video.